when I grew up watching you in baseball, you were known as the National League Iron Man, and had, geez, a very long run of health, really good health while playing baseball and playing at a very high competitive level. Here's the cover of you on Sports Illustrated and in I think 1983. And you know, it's interesting. We're hearing you now coming out as a health advocate, and tell us about your prostate cancer journey and when you were diagnosed and what you went through.
Well, thanks for mentioning the streak, and that really kind of paraphrased my philosophy about playing the game of baseball. The contract says 162 championship games, and once I made it as a first baseman and kind of got entrenched, I felt it was my obligation to be out there if I physically could. And I was pretty lucky, didn't have any major injuries per se for a number of years, but that 1,207 consecutive game streak, 7.5 years going to the office every day, is a National League record, number 4 behind Cal Ripken and Lou Gehrig and Everett Scott. And it was just my firm belief that preparation is so important, being able to take care of yourself physically, mentally, and spiritually. So that I worked almost as hard in the off season as I did during the season, because I thought that I owed it to the fans to be ready. And of course, you know, sometimes it's out of your hands and in God's hands. But I think the training, proper diet, laughing once in a while, and then going out there and giving 100%, never being defensive, but having a controlled aggressiveness. And then after my career, I still stayed relatively healthy, but the Ironman started to get a little rust in the joints, and I've come down with arthritis, and I have 2 hip replacements, which is not atypical for baseball players, especially pitchers. And then my first big medical challenge was the recognition of having prostate cancer last fall. At a high elevated PSA compared to my normal scores. I'm on the board of neurosurgery at UCLA, so I decided to stay within the system there, which we have tremendous belief in, and I went to the urology department. I met with the chairman, Dr. Mark Litwin. We talked over the next step, which is a biopsy. We did that, found out that my Gleason score was, I had 2 7s in 2 different areas and 2 or 3 6s. So he said that it was time to do something about it. And then when mortality stares you in the face, you look for help, you know, look for that reliever. And Dr. Litwin was both a setup man and a closer, because we talked about radiation and chemotherapy. Sometimes men don't want to really talk about radical prostatectomies. They'd rather wait. But my wife Candace and I, we kind of held hands, and you know, you always ask your doctor, what would you do? Well, Dr. Litwin said, you know, if it was me, I would take it out, do a radical prostatectomy. And he said, you can do it robotically. That seems to be the hip procedure now. And I looked at him and I stared at him, and he looked back at me and he says, but you know, I'm kind of at the top of my game. You know, I'd like to do it. And I always love confidence like that. It's like wanting to be up there with the game on the line, Nolan Ryan's pitching, and you feel confident. So within a few weeks, we did the radical prostatectomy. A day later in the hospital, Dr. Litwin came in. He said, I believe that the cancer is encapsulated. I don't believe it's spread. Let's wait 3 months, take another PSA test and see where we are. And got the results back about 6 weeks ago, and it turned out to be a 0.1 negative. So not only was this wonderful doctor and this great urology department and Reagan Hospital a setup man, so to speak, they were also closers, and the doctor says, I think you're cancer free. He says, but we never want to be cocky. Let's keep taking our PSAs the next 6 months and a year. And that's where I am now. And being a Christian family, I felt it, and my wife too, that God threw us a curve. I kind of hit it out to right center like I did against Lee Smith in the playoffs of '84. But God challenges us. So I think he challenged me to take up the torch, so to speak, and to start talking about prostate cancer, start to get men engaged in the idea of being preemptive, taking your PSA test. I know there are 3 doctors at UCLA Urology now in their research department working on fabulous new forms of testing, PSA testing. So over the last 6 weeks, I've done 40 interviews and feel it's my obligation to other men and to the women that love them and their families to to talk about this disease. I think over 30 or 40,000 men die each year of it, and let's see if we can make a difference.
Some prostate cancers are high risk, aggressive, and more likely to spread. Others are low risk, least likely to have bad outcomes. The biopsy says cancer, but current diagnostic tools provide limited information about how aggressive a man's individual disease is. So most men decide to treat prostate cancer immediately. Once treated, many men experience serious long-term side effects, like incontinence and sexual impotence. Immediate treatment isn't always needed, but right now a man can't be sure if his cancer is the kind that is likely to require treatment or if he's okay to wait for now. What if there was a test that could determine how aggressive prostate cancer is? Genomic Health is developing a new test to do just that. By reviewing the underlying biology of the tumor and using genes from multiple biologic pathways, the test can predict the aggressiveness of prostate cancer when diagnosed, allowing a man to make a more informed treatment decision with confidence, taking care of himself with more information and greater peace of mind.